The opinions and views expressed in the following presentation do not necessarily reflect those of GameCon Radio or its affiliates.
Welcome to Moebanshee's Lair, Visionary Talk Radio on GameConRadio.com. We rock your world.
There's another attack out. For the past few weeks, we've been talking about zombie attacks. Well, now there's a vampire attack, and anybody who is around, you know, listening to the news, some guy in, I guess, Florida or something, some toothless wonder had 2 teeth that looks like fangs. He attacked somebody. So now the vampires are starting to act up too. So I think it's kind of ridiculous, but what the heck, you know, there's a lot of weirdness going on, and I'm not sure if it's just because people are strung out in drugs or because they're complete morons. I'm not sure what's going on, but be careful. Make sure you always have your wits about you, and don't go places where you're going to be alone or isolated. So, a friend of mine, Dan Mahaney, he emailed me, and he apologized for not being in touch a lot over the last year or so, 2 years. And as it turns out, he's been very, very ill. Lupus is just one of the problems. And lupus is a rough disease because it affects organs. It affects a lot of people a lot of different ways. For me, my lungs become inflamed, and I have to go on prednisone to try to get my lungs to behave again. And it's caused other problems like COPD and severe arthritis and all kinds of things. And there's the rashes, and there's a lot of things that go on. But we were talking about it, and he said so many people in the field of paranormal investigation seem to be fighting autoimmune system diseases. And it made us think, and he says, you know, that would be a great thing to explore for your show. And I'm hoping he's up to it tonight and will be able to contact me and give me a call in for the show, because I would really like him to join in. And I'm really sorry, but I'm coughing a lot, so, and it can't be helped. I wish it could, but I'm having a little trouble. Like I say, it's been raining here a lot. When we decide to investigate, my team is a lot different from almost any other team out there. And Shadow is going to be jumping on. Brian is going to be jumping on as soon as he's done eating. But our team is different in that we just don't go running around trying to rack up a scorecard. We do not go running around trying to get as many cases as we can. Pizza. Brian says in the chat, he's eating pizza. And thank everybody who's in the chat and listening on the players. God bless you. I hope you're safe. I hope your loved ones are safe. And Brian's eating pizza. Shame on you. You're not supposed to say that in front of me. But we don't go around and just take a lot of cases. I mean, I'll get people that talk to me all the time and say, oh, my house is haunted. And I'll say, it is. And they'll say, yeah, I have a ghost. Well, that doesn't mean it's haunted. That means you have a resident spirit there, or you have something going on there. Hauntings, to me, are bad things. They're things that, yeah, they're bad words for Mo. They're bad things that are making it impossible for a family to live there. Having a cabinet open or a door open or hearing knocking once in a while or having things, that doesn't bother me. That doesn't mean you have a haunting. That just means something's going on there. You're not familiar with what it is. Maybe it's a spirit, but it's not a haunting, okay? And then people get upset when they'll say, well, do you want to come and investigate? And I'll say, no, there's nothing bad happening, right? And they'll say, no. I'll say, no. Why would you want me there? And the reason I say this is because you're opening up a can of worms. If it's just a plain, simple spirit there or whatever, and now you're going to go traipsing in and out of this house, you could make things work. I'm hearing my voice. You could be escalating some kind of activity by your being there. There's no reason to be there. Unless somebody's being hurt or somebody's really, really being scared, people can't live in the house. There's no reason for you to be in that house. The flip side of it is, too, when you're taking, for me, I'm taking my team into a location, I have to think of what's best for my team. And racking up scores and just bringing my team in and out of building after building after building, location after location, I'm exposing my team to a lot of things. Every location has its environmental impact. By that I mean every location can have something there that can be dangerous, not just for the clients, but for your team. And I get concerned because I see teams just going in place after place, and they'll say, oh, we went into 20 places this month. For what? What are you going into these places for? Just so you can put down you went to 20 different places. So you can look like you actually know what you're doing. Meanwhile, you've exposed your team to asbestos. You've exposed them to fungus, mold, gas, chemicals. You have exposed them to whatever is wrong with the client. God forbid one of the clients has TB and doesn't know it. Hepatitis C, maybe somebody has hepatitis in the house. You could be exposing your people to so many dangerous things. And I think maybe, just maybe, this has something to do with the high amount of illnesses that a lot of teams are starting to experience. A lot of these illnesses seem to be focusing on autoimmune. These are things that attack your immune system and make it impossible for it to protect you anymore. So if you're an investigator and you're scheduling a lot of cases just because you think that it makes you look more professional, I'm concerned for your team because you're doing your team a disservice. And then I'm going to ask, if anybody listening, has your team been experiencing a lot of either physical illness or mental illness? Has your team seemed to be plagued with different things going on? Because there's a whole slew of things, and I've got them written down here, and we're going to be going through this tonight. There's a whole lot of things that happen when somebody says they want to be an investigator. And as soon as Brian comes in, I know he's going to be invaluable here, because Brian has seen some pretty unbelievable things with us. It's been pretty real on some of the cases we've been. As a team leader, my job is not just for the clients. So people get mad at me because I will talk to them on the phone. I will keep talking to them because the last thing I want to do is take my team in there. And that's because most of the cases are hundreds of miles away from home. So that means you're going to spend money on travel, gas, housing, food. You never stay at ground zero unless it's something fun. Like when our team did the Knickerbocker, we stayed at the Knickerbocker that night. When our team does Fort Mifflin, and I do Fort Mifflin not because it's haunted, it's not. It does have resident spirits there, but I'm trying to help Fort Mifflin stay open and independent because it is an incredible historic place. When we went to the R&R out in Pennsylvania, or the bed and breakfast, the Jean Bonnet, we stayed there. But these aren't haunted buildings. These are buildings with resident spirits that come and go. The difference with a haunting, a home that's haunted, or something you're really trying to find out, you stay at ground zero, you never get a break. There's no downtime. Your team has no time to back off and just relax. If you have a hotel room that is not at ground zero, it's not at the investigation part, you give your team time to eat dinner, sit and joke around and calm down. There's time to rest. When you're in ground zero in a bad haunting, there's no time to rest. Your team is constantly observing. It's constantly trying to find out what's going and investigating. Even when they say they're going to lay down, it's not the same as being in what I call a safe zone. And so when we go into a serious haunting where we're going to be away for a couple of days, Altoona, we had a serious case, Kitani, we never stayed at those homes. We stayed in hotels, which is what I call safe zone. I see a lot of teams that they're taking a lot of cases. Some of them are doing 20 different cases, just bang, 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 bang. Their teams, really, they're burning their teams out. There's no rest. By the time they're done looking through so-called evidence for one case, they're on to the next because they're hoping whatever. And this I blame on the fallout from TV. Every 10, 20 years, there's a big resurgence in all things paranormal. And suddenly you have a new movie about vampires, you have a new movie about, mummies, you have, there are cycles to this stuff. Well, television is the same thing. And as soon as TAPS came out on TV, Ghost Hunters, everybody was already starting to feel the effects of the faltering economy and thought, hey, I can do this. And what you see on TAPS is not reality. And I'm going to explain without giving away places and rolling over on our clients. A real case, a real family in trouble, you're going to walk in and you have no clue what you're going to walk into. So you're exposing your team to possibly very dangerous things. You could have people who are emotionally unbalanced, and you could have people who are drug addicts. And Teddy hit the wrong button. And you could have people who are drug addicts. You could have people who are alcoholics. Okay, Brian, just as soon as he gets back to the control thing, I'll tell him. You could be walking into the worst possible things going on. It doesn't necessarily mean that they have a ghost problem. And I have to tell you, the chances of them actually having a real demon are like the chances of you being hit by something from the space lab. Okay, I mean, yeah, it might happen, but it's probably not. Okay, so you're exposing your team to real human drama. It's not like on TV where they go in and they say, oh, well, I think she's dabbling in this and that and the next thing, and maybe you should go, yeah, I will go and I will look right at my client after it's all over and suggest counseling. And each person on my team has some very important jobs. Bob, we call him the Bear. He is security, and so is Brian, and so are Matt and Andrew when they come. I have 2 Marines and 2 very big men. Bob is a security and personnel person up at a psychiatric hospital. I don't walk into someone's house taking a chance I might be, stabbed to death. I don't take chances like that I don't take chances. I don't walk into, hang on. I don't take chances on going into a house by myself where there's a chance I could be raped, robbed, I could be assaulted somehow. I see a lot of teams that all they are worried about is taking on these case numbers. We did 15 cases. Now, you did your cousin's house, you did this house, you did that. And that's why I go right back to, I don't do the, oh, I have a haunted house. Do you want to come? Not unless you got something really bad going on. No, I don't. I don't want to expose myself to whatever drama's going in your house. I don't want to expose my team to something dangerous if it's not warranted. And investigating unexplained activity, the first thing that's going to happen is your team is walking into a location that could be very dangerous. We have walked in, and as soon as I could get Matt in here to patch him in, Brian stopped me before I went through a floor and went down like three flights down into a hole where there used to be a staircase that was removed. And something told me to be careful. Something told me to be very careful. The owners of that home never said a word to me. And Brian came on. He's ready to be added into the feed. And as soon as I went in, I felt funny, and I was feeling for the light, and I took my foot and kept moving it in and moving it in, and then I felt a hand on my shoulder. And it was Brian. And we're going to try to add Brian now. So,
hello.
Hello. Brian, the case with the staircase. You want to walk them
What
through?
Staircase?
What staircase, exactly?
Yeah, the stairs, they were just supposed to be just past where the loaded rifles were kept.
I didn't tell him about the loaded rifles. Yes, there were a lot of loaded rifles in this home, and it was a room, and we were a little concerned when we got in there, because man, what do you got a bunch of loaded rifles for, But then I stepped in, and I felt his hand on my shoulder, and I looked and I went, "There's no stairs here. There's nothing. It's just a big gaping hole."
And nothing to keep you from walking right over into the hole.
Right over into it. And this is the reality of a real case, people. You're walking into a home where people may not be, they may not even think far enough ahead to think that's an important thing we should probably tell them, is that there's no staircase over there. A lot of people think it's very cool to have teams in there. But Brian and Bob, they've been great with helping us. Other things, wires hanging down. Tell them some of the things we walk into. Right?
I'm sorry, I was just reading the chat.
Tell them some of the things that are very dangerous that we walk into. We got about 4 minutes before we go to break, so tell them,
Well, I'd have to say that one of my biggest fears in any ghost investigation would be times when I'm in an attic or in the basement, and there's black widow spiders and other kinds of creepy crawly things all around in there. Forget the ghost, I'm more scared of those creepy things that crawl around and bite you?
Scott. Scott is our tunnel rat, and that's because Scott is tiny, and he can fit. He has the dubious honor of being the smallest one of us, and Bob or Brian can take him and just shove him up through a hole in a ceiling, and
come back a few hours later.
Yeah, he comes back and he goes, "Oh my God, there's mushrooms growing in the ceiling and there's black mold hanging down." And all of these are environmental problems that your team is exposed to.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really, really dangerous because black mold can cause all kinds of health problems. It can cause your lungs to become infected. I mean, there is so much that can go wrong with black mold. All you have to do is look at black mold. It is a dangerous proposition. And when it's dry and you're moving through and you kick it, that's when it's even more dangerous, because now it's breaking off and it becomes like a powder and it's airborne and you're breathing this in. Now, when you're watching TV, they're not standing there telling you, "Oh, this is dangerous, because they're not really on a real case. They're just investigating someplace for TV so that they have a show. But these are a few of the things that we worry about. And when I look at some of the things that I see teams going into, it's no wonder that a lot of us are getting really, really sick. I mean, Dan has lupus. I was diagnosed with lupus like 15 years ago. And I got to tell you, it's rough. It's not something that's easily controlled. You try to keep stress down. You try to eat right. You try to do everything you're supposed to do. But eventually, the disease is going to get you. But doing these investigations, I think that a lot of people aren't aware of just how much damage they can do to their teams. Do you?
Oh yeah, it's you don't even think about those things until you're faced with it. It's like, oh man, I hadn't even thought of that, and then there it is.
Really? We've gone on some cases where we've been standing in a line looking at each other like, what the heck, and do we really want to go in this place? So we're going to be right back, and we're going to be talking about the things that teams, I guess, aren't even thinking of as they rack up all these investigations. They're not realizing the damage they're doing to themselves and their own team members because they're trying to rack up, cases just to get on TV or get radio shows or do whatever. And this is why my team only takes bad cases. And if we're doing a fun case, it's going to be one I'm sure none of us are going to get killed on. Because I don't want anybody's wife or beloved coming down on me saying, "Hey, you got my kid killed," and I don't want to come home and say to Teddy, "Hey, one of the boys, he bit the dust while we were on a case." My job is to make sure my team is safe first. And I'm seeing a lot of teams that aren't playing it safe. The first song we're going to be playing is "Who'll Stop the Rain." That was my choice tonight because what has been raining like 4 days in a row now, Bri?
Yeah, something like that, yeah.
Yeah, we've had a lot of rain. We'll be right back. This is Moebanshee's Lair. We're talking about, is your team getting sick from you traipsing all over on these cases? Are taking cases making your team sick? If you've got a team that's gotten sick, or you think maybe getting sick, or you want to bounce it around, when we come back, I'll put a number up and you can give us a call. We'll be right back.
Just a reminder, guys, all our talk show hosts here at GameCon Radio volunteer their time, but you can always show your appreciation. Click on the tip jar and give them a little love. I'm sure maybe your predictions will come out a little bit better. And that's how we roll here at GameCon Radio. We rock your game and your paranormal.
Yes?
Hi, I'm here for the New York Ghost Tour.
Sorry, we're closed. But you can come back next week.
Next week? Forget that. I'll just go check out another place.
Trust me, there's no place half as interesting as ours, dear.
That's so not true. What about the Shanley Hotel in Napanock?
Once you've been to one haunted hotel, you've been to them all.
Not like this place. The Shanley Hotel dates back to 1845, and since then it's been a hotspot for paranormal activity. Mysterious music, smells, whistling, doors opening, footsteps. Almost everything you can imagine has been experienced at that hotel.
It's open to the public?
Absolutely. Sal and Cindy, the owners of the hotel, welcome people for regular stays or investigations, and their rates are beyond reasonable. They even offer workshops and in-house psychics.
How did you learn about this place?
By visiting www.shanleyhotel.com. You can get history, investigation info, and much more.
Thanks, I think I will. Just don't tell any of our customers.
Your secret's safe with me.
Welcome back to Moebanshee's Lair, Visionary Talk Radio on GameConRadio.com. We're talking about is investigating making your team sick? And I'm kind of on two fences because, yes, there is a real chance that you going in and investigating can put your team into danger. And I don't think a lot of people are even getting that far. They are thinking that, you know, they're going to go in. It's all going to be supernatural. We're here to find the ghost, and then they get into the house, and that's not what's going on. And we have a cat fight going on.
Get along.
Yeah. It's live radio, folks. Nothing I can do about it. We had a case, and it's some years now. And Brian was not able to make that case. It was one of these where we had to get out there. And
right.
it was a distance from us. Now, here's the first thing that happens. I get somebody referred to me from another team who says, you know, this is a family in trouble and we don't handle that. We collect evidence and we do this and that. What are you in it for? Because you're going to walk into a case, there's always going to be people there, and people are the big equation. Living people and dead people. And they don't call it parapsychology for nothing, you know? Somebody's talking to me in the chat, and Cosmic, everything is fine, okay? I'll talk to you about it later. So anyway, when the chat's talking, it's a little hard for me to do a show and keep track of the chat. That's why I have other people doing that and trying to talk to the people in the chat, because I can't do everything. We had this case, and it was referred to us. And of course, it was one of these things where we had to get out there because this was a family that was terrified. And of course, someone had mentioned the D word. And when we got out there, we indeed did find a terrified family. And the reason they were terrified was because the father had found his son hanging in the basement, and there was a spirit that had approached the father and chased him down to the basement. And of course, some team said, well, you've got a demonic entity there. And the first thing I said is, why would you think the spirit was demonic? And he says, well, he hung my son, and the son did live, by the way. And I says, but no, if he had not chased you into the basement, your son would be dead. Your son is alive because this entity came up to you and backed you down into the basement so you could find the son. Now, the reality of all this is that the son was going through some really, really, really tough stuff. He was going through a divorce. He ingested some drugs, and he actually went downstairs and tried to hang himself. Now, these are the kind of cases we walk into, and this is serious stuff. You know, like like Matt just said, he says, you guys are more than just ghost hunters. And I hate that term. We are counselors when we need to be. We are your house inspection people. We are the people that go in and say this area you're living in is not healthy because you're doing A, B, C, D wrong. We are the people that have to come in, and after we do all of our things, and this was just a recent case that we had where someone in the family was staging activity to try to scare someone else in the house out. And it had everybody in the family at their wits' end, okay? These are the kind of cases I take. I don't just walk in because somebody says, hey, Mo, I got a ghost, you know? That's nice. If you didn't have a ghost, I would be surprised. People have been living and dying since Adam and Eve. So if you don't have a spirit around, or you've never experienced any kind of unexplained phenomena, I'd have to say, what do you got, blinders on, you know? But now you take a team that's kind of green, and they're going into these situations, and these are real people in real trouble. And what are they getting? They're getting the ghost hunters, and you know, we're here to find evidence. We're here to find evidence. Or then
teams that learned everything they know off the Science Channel.
Thank you. That's exactly why I wanted you on. Misinformation. Matthew was saying misinformation. This is what most teams that are working out there today, that have hung a shingle on their door saying, we're paranormal investigators. We're here to help you. You know, like the Ghostbuster commercial in the movie. You know, we're here to help you. And really, they're not taking care of business. These are people who could have all kinds of problems going on. So now you're exposing your team to anything. I mean, we've all heard the stories where people have been called on called for pizza, and they've been beat to death. Don't think this isn't happening. I know a lot of teams that were called on investigations. What? And they were called on investigations only to have all their equipment stolen while they were eating dinner.
Mm-hmm.
You know, talk about the prime setup, you know? Thank God nobody's hurt during these thefts. But
it could happen.
It could happen, sure. I go on investigations, and my team is mostly men on any given time. So my roommate is usually Scott, or else I don't have a roommate, which means I'm sleeping alone. And I'm in a town away from home. I'm not someplace where I feel safe. I'm in a totally different atmosphere. See, most of these teams they're doing what I guess, what would you call them, Brian? Tourism locations?
Yeah, I was trying to think of the good word for it, and it's almost like a recreational hunt sort of thing.
They're places that hundreds and hundreds of teams traipse through, and they say, oh, I did Slosh Furnace, and I did the prepared sites. Yeah, they're places that for years somebody said, oh, it's haunted, but now you've got 200, 300, 400 teams that have gone through there, and if I were the ghost, I'd probably pack up and leave. Okay, they're not
too crowded in here.
Yeah,
they're stick around.
Yeah, they're not real cases. That's just tourism stuff, and that's somebody playing at investigate. That's Scooby-Doo stuff. You know what I mean? That's not. Now tell me that you've been in houses where, like we've been, where there's 15 rifles loaded. And when you ask the owner, what are you going to do with them? I'm going to kill the ghost. Now you're talking what my team goes through. You know, go into a house where the only thing that looks like it's not going to fall down is the one beam in the center of the house that's in the basement. Everything else is kind of crumbling around it. You're bringing your team into this stuff. Environmentally, these houses. Now, we've just spent almost an hour talking about just the psychological, the mental, emotional stuff that a team can walk into that can make it dangerous for them. And that's why Bob is a godsend. He's trained to work with people with emotional issues. We call him the bear because he is big, like a grizzly bear. And he is an incredibly astute in seeing when people are kind of, they're off, So,
oh yeah, he's a trained professional in that line of work.
Oh yeah, he is a security. If somebody were to try to grab me and Bob is there, they better hope to God.
I pity the fool.
Yeah, really. But this is what my team is. I have my team on now. Janet has been on a couple, and she's a social worker, so she's valuable because of that training of reading what people, what's going on behind the eyes. All these groups that are exposing their teams, they're either playing it very, very safe by scheduling all their things around these tourism cases and avoiding real cases, or they've been damn lucky that they haven't had a really bad case call them for help, because they all say they're really good at handling these cases, and none of them know what they're going to walk into. Not one of them understands what they're going to walk into. The environmental stuff, black mold, that has got to be one of the biggest dangers. And like you said, the black widows, the spiders, brown recluse, they're rampant up here now. We were at the camper, and Andrew killed 2 brown recluses last weekend.
Well, that's another thing. A lot of teams like to do these cemetery investigations, and they're going out there in the middle of the night, and there's just a whole list of things that could go wrong with that. I mean, wild animals, wild people, wild holes in the ground that you don't see. I mean, there's just tons of things that could get you hurt and you're not expecting.
Go for holes. Go for holes.
Oh, yeah.
Number 1 leg breaker.
Or even an old grave that kind of caves in on you or something.
Cemeteries. Go in there at night, and you know what? Back in the day, the drunks, the drug addicts, the people doing bad things went there because most people wouldn't be caught in a cemetery at night. Now you got kids, 15, 16, 17, 18, 20 years old. And I hate to bring this up, but this is the reality of it, folks. A couple of years ago, a new team leader, and he wasn't a kid, he was in his 30s, brings his team up on a trestle out down in the South. I don't know, the Carolinas, Virginias, whatever it was, I can't remember. It was supposed to be where there was some kind of circus train accident or a train accident. He gets his team on the train trestle, and a train comes. His fiance was running in front of him. He pushed her off and got her off, but he was killed by the train. You see, on TV, they stop the train, guys. They pay whoever it is to stop it for an hour so that they can make sure they have it, or they have the police flagging down the train so they can go on these train trestles and they can go in these buildings. And don't ever let anybody tell you that Ghost Adventures Baggy Pants Zach doesn't have people there in case he gets hurt. They all do. They all have what do you call it? They all have medics there. They all have agents. They're agents.
Producers. They get all those people.
They're not going to take a chance on their people getting hurt for a lousy TV show. I mean, the most you might get is a splinter or something like that. There is, when you see them, and he was the only person in there, well, who do you think is walking around with the camera? The good fairy? What, does she come in there and sneak in when everybody's gone and start filming him and walking around and taking the angle shots? Of course he's not alone, and they're not going to let these people take a chance on being alone because they don't want to get sued. The show is making money. They want everybody happy. So new teams taking these incredibly stupid chances just in the hopes that they're going to be the next thing on TV is probably the one thing I am the most afraid of. What about you, Brian?
Yeah, that's one of the biggest fears I have for these young teens out there and people that are just getting into it because they think it's cool to watch and all this and that. But they just, they don't know until they get out there and they're faced with these things.
So now you've got a team that decides they're going to take the real cases like Mo. You know, they forget Mo is over 60 years old. Mo's husband is going to be 81 soon. We're not kids. We're not just new kids on the block. We've been through a lot. So, but they're going to try to take these cases. They go into these houses, and like Matt said before, they focus on ghosts. We're here to get evidence of activity, okay? They don't do the walkthrough, and they don't start listing what's going on in the house. Scott will find out if you're on a medication. Scott's going to find out about it. That's his job. I want to know if people are on anything. I want to know if they're doing drugs. When I walk in, my nose starts going. I'm like a bloodhound. I want to know, are they doing crack? I want to know, is there LSD being used in the house? I mean, that's an old one from back in the day. We would go in a case and it's got that burny kind of smell, and I'd go and look at Teddy and go, uh-oh, we got drug users here, you know? This all plays on what you're investigating. This all helps shape the picture of the investigation, but you have to protect your team. So if you know you're walking into a house with somebody, bath salts. Scooby just said bath salts. Look at what they're doing to people. Now, I admit, I had no clue what bath salts are, but so far we've got, 3 cases now where people have been strung out on bath soaps and salts. And they're cannibalizing. Yeah, they're cannibalizing each other. And this is because they're homeless and somewhere in... Yeah, you know, they're hungry. They're taking this stuff, and pretty soon they look at their buddy and say, well, I'm hungry, I need to eat. You know, I'm reading the chat too, because there are real things going on, and you're exposing your team to this, people. And not only are you exposing them to the danger of somebody being strung out on a drug, somebody being mentally, if they're cooking, what do they call that? Cooking crack or crystal meth.
Crystal meth or something, yeah.
All right, they're not doing it while you're there. But Brian knows what it is.
I watched Breaking Bad.
But you're bringing your team in there. Now somebody has, like me, weak lungs, and maybe the day before they were cooking something in there, and I'm breathing this in. This is going to have effects on my health. This can cause me to start having asthma trouble. It'll start my heart to beat irregularly. I just by going into that house where the day before they were doing some kind of drug, they were whatever. We've walked into houses that the smell of pot was so thick in the room, we had to open the doors and air the houses out. And Bob was there, and you were there, right? They
yeah, I think so. I remember something like that.
Yeah, they had the munchies. They had the munchies, and were asking us if we want, you know, I mean.
Yeah, you want some ghetto pizza?
Right, you know. I mean, I'm not trying to diss the client. No. Obviously, they think they have a real problem, but what their problem is not the spirit. That's the least of their problem. Their problems are they're doing drugs. They're cooking drugs in their house. They're growing drugs in their house. There's something going on in their house that's affecting them, like black mold. There are also chemicals. And we see this a lot in older houses, especially where families have been generation upon generation, because You know, you're raised, and Grandpa kept all his spray cans and all his W240 and all kinds of crap down in the basement. And you go down and you actually can smell all that chemical mixing in the air. Because now, of course, these cans are 20, 30, 40 years old, and they're starting to leak some of the stuff contained in them out. And you're smelling all these smells, and you look at them and say, don't you think you should clear that out? Yeah, it's been here for years. That's not bothering us. Yes, it is. And now it's bothering my team, because my team is breathing in this crap. You go in a basement and somebody's keeping their chlorine for their pool down there, and the whole basement is smelling of chlorine and all these chemicals. Your team is being exposed to this. See, my problem, and I don't know how it is for you, Brian, but the ghost or the spirits there are not the things making people sick. I don't think so. It's the environmental stuff, and everybody's body is different, and everybody's body reacts differently to chemicals, to smells. We were in the one house where I kept asking the family, do you have like oil someplace? You know, like heating oil, right? It was heating oil. And they're going, no, see, that's a gas furnace. This is this, this is this, this is this. And I'm like, no, this is oil. And finally, I move a bunch of boxes and find a hidden door that they've got. And there's one of those big, huge tanks of home heating oil. And it's got 2 leaks that they're collecting the oil. This is going up through the floors. Their children are smelling it. My team is smelling it. Scott got sick. We had to send him outside, remember? You weren't there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you were there for that one, right? Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah, Scott had to go out. It was during the Christmas vacation some years back. Remember, they kept calling us, telling us they were scared and everything. But Scott actually got sick. This is what you're putting your teams into. Teams have got to be careful. The first thing I did was say, you got to ventilate this, and you got to get rid of that tank. Yeah, we got to get rid of it. And I finally looked at these people and said, do not tell me you have a certificate of occupancy for this house, because there's no way. I don't know what the arrangement is with the house owner. Maybe you're here because, you're making sure nobody burns it down, but this is not a safe environment for your children. It's not a safe environment for my team. We were there maybe 6 hours, and I got the team out of there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. This is another thing. Teams have to be willing, when it's an unsafe environment, they have to be willing to get out. Yes, bed bugs. I got a whole list of things. There's a whole lot of things we can walk into and come out with fleas. You get your team bit up by fleas, and the people in that house are sick. There's something going on. Now your team comes down with an illness from being bit by the fleas in the house. This is what you're actually looking at when you're taking on these cases. Abuse, animal abuse. I cannot tell you. Back in the day, Teddy and I, we reported a lot of people to DIFUS and the police for animal abuse. And I will do it now without worrying about the client. And I invited you to my house. Well, you opened Pandora's box. You brought me here. Now I'm going to make sure that the proper authorities, this is another thing that weighs on people doing real cases. You're dealing with situations where you have got to decide, do I roll over on these people? Is it going to help them to have their kids taken away because they've got huge oil tanks in their basement leaking? I finally, in that situation, had to go to the team who referred us and said, look, he has a choice. Either he cleans it up or I'm going to have to report him to the town officials because the house is not a safe house for his kids. That's a real case. That's a real case for us, right, Brian?
Oh, yeah.
We get stuck with really crappy decisions at the end of the day. It's like Matt's saying in the chat. It would be fine if you could just go in there and look for ghosts and go, oh, we're looking for evidence. But when you go into some of these situations and realize what you're walking into, and you realize you're the one that's going to have to roll over on them. You're the one that's going to have to do something about it. And then they get very angry about it because I brought you in here to find a ghost. I didn't bring you in here to tell me I have problems in my house. Well, actually, you did. You brought me in here to find out what's wrong with your family. Mm-hmm. Why you're all bouncing off the walls. Why you're all sick. And I just put my own team in danger by bringing them here. So now I got to go the whole mile. And sometimes it's really hard because there are kids involved, and it can get really, really emotional. You can have people standing there telling you, I don't believe you. I don't believe that they would do this.
If you don't tell them what they want to hear.
Right. You're telling them what they don't want to hear.
They've already got preconceived notions of what they have in the house, and they don't want to hear you tell them it's not that.
Yeah. Oh, my kid, he's hearing voices at night. He's hearing this. He's hearing that. You go in there, the kid's bed is surrounded by battery toys. And I mean surrounded. He's got a TV spilling electric. He's got every game, electrical game, Nintendo, whatever, that God ever had them create. They're all in that room. And you look at them and say, this kid's head is bouncing off the wall from electromagnet. I'm getting a headache being in here. But they don't want to hear that because they want to hear it's a ghost. There's a lot of reasons they want to hear it's a ghost, but we're going to talk about that when we come back. This is GameCon Radio. We're talking about, are you making your team sick by going on too many cases and going on these cases? And it's a real, evidently there's a lot of teams going through this now where they're being ill, but I just want to make sure everybody knows that it's not necessarily the ghosts that are making you sick. It's what you're bringing your team into. And that's the real problem of just taking case after case, track those numbers up. You're exposing your team to real dangers. And when they start getting sick, they're going to look at you. So we'll be right back. This is GameCon Radio, and I think Heartbreaker by Led Zeppelin is going to be the next break song.
Hey, little girl, what would you do for a Klondike bar? GameCon Radio, the station your mother warned you about. You've got questions.
Who are we?
Where do we come from?
Are we alone in the universe?
Is there life after death?
Where can I take a class and really learn about demonology? Now, get the answers. For a decade, the American Institute of Metaphysics has offered the ultimate in courses designed to serve as the foundation in your search for life's questions. The courses cover a variety of subject areas and consist of wide-ranging alternative sciences, theories, and philosophies. Each course comes complete with textbooks, work materials, and instructions. The courses allow you the freedom to pursue your own areas of interest according to your schedule. Whether it's UFOs, life after death, demonology, cryptozoology, and more, you've got questions. We've got answers. Visit www.instituteofmetaphysics.com or call 877-623-3241 and start your search now.
Welcome back to Moebanshee's Lair, Visionary Talk Radio. We're trying to keep it a little easy tonight because today I was talking to a friend who's become very ill with lupus. And in cases of lupus and things like that, of course, these are underlying health problems. And most people are not even aware, good night, Bear, most people are not even aware that they have these diseases until finally a doctor sits there and brings out a test and says, oh, you've got. But there are things that will affect underlying diseases. For instance, I'm asthmatic, and stress. Stress affects everything. And if you're taking a case, especially if you're putting a team through lots and lots of cases, like 20, you're stressing your team to the point where they're constantly investigating, they're going through, evidence and all. And at first, everybody kind of looks and says, this is great, until their families turn around and say, welcome back, Cosmic. When their families turn around and say, wait a minute, we haven't done anything in 2 months. We haven't gone anywhere. Everything is ghost hunting. You're constantly off on these ghost hunts, and then suddenly there's the emotional problems with the families that start up. This is fallout from investigating. You can run your team to the point where they are actually exhausted. You're running your team, and this is, I'm seeing a lot of these young teams are all falling apart, and it's the same thing. You've got one person who's in charge of these teams who thinks we're going to be the next TV show. We're going to be the next radio. So they're taskmasters, and they're telling their team, we're going to go to this place, and we're going to go to this place, and we're going to go to Gettysburg, and we're going to go here, and we're going to go there. It costs money, which is hard on a lot of families, especially now in this economy. They're spending money on equipment. They're spending money on batteries.
And they exaggerate, sensationalize. They always have to find something, whether it's there or not.
Are you back, Bri? No. Yeah, they're embellishing everything because they want it to look like, yeah, we're the biggest, baddest ones out there. We're real. I cannot tell you how absolutely disgusted I was by those two guys that ran around and were like the ghost lab, and how they went to that one house, the axe murder house, the Scylla axe murder house, and they're screaming, I got an axe, I'm going to kill you. Where the hell did these people come from? Who trained them? Where did they get the idea they know anything they're doing about? Let's pretend for a moment, Shadow's back, Brian's back. Welcome back, Brian.
Oh, thank you. Old dog takes a while.
Yeah, did you read about those people going into the Vasilla axe house and screaming at the kids, we're here with an axe, we're going to kill you, this kind of thing? Who said that this was a good idea?
Yeah, I heard about that. I can't imagine why anybody would do something like that.
Let's say, for the argument, that there are the spirits of some of those children who were killed that night in that house, and now you are traumatizing them for a television show. What in God's name makes that right in any aspect of this? Ratings, people. It's all about ratings. If I had a team member who actually did that, they would not be on the team. I have bounced team members for a lot less than that. This antagonism, like they were at the Shanley. We love the Shanley. Shanley's a nice little hotel. If you've never investigated and you want to try your hand at it, it's a safe environment you can go to. Okay? It's a nice place. Sal is just a great guy. Sal Nicosa owns it. It's up in Napanoch, New York. It is a wonderful place. If you just want to start and see what it's like, to go into a place that's reputed to have activity. It's a wonderful place. These jerks from Ghost Lab go on this show, and they go in there and they start screaming, okay, Mr. Shanley, we bought this building, we're taking it down, we're doing this. What for? This is all ratings. This is all TV garbage. This isn't a real investigation. And anybody who thinks a real investigation is like that, you're out of your mind. That's tourism stuff. That's two morons sucking up ratings, trying to find their little niche in the paranormal community. Look at us, we got a TV show. I have got so many people that I hear from, and they all ask me the same thing. Do you think I have a shot at being an investigator on TV? Do you think I got a shot at the show? Don't ask me. I don't watch any of that crap. It's all baloney. I don't watch that stuff, and I hope to God you don't get a show, because that's the last thing we need. Real cases, you're going in, gas leaks, electrical wires, electrical spillage, K2 meters, EMF meters. People, they were designed by electricians. They were not designed by ghost hunters. They never designed anything in their life except how to make a lot of money on people gullible watching a scary show. Okay? EMFs measure electric. Electricians made these gadgets to find hot wires in walls. Am I off the mark here, Brian? You used to be an electrician.
Mm-hmm. They're sensitive, so usually these guys are picking up just about anything with them.
You can pick up anything. You can pick up radio frequencies. You can pick up police cars. You can pick up cell phones.
And it's always a ghost with these guys that use it.
It's always a ghost. Oh my God! It's like, now I've used it and said, well, you know, touch it. But that isn't how I when I'm in a house, that's my first concern is how much electromagnet energy are these people sleeping around? Because if somebody's telling me they're waking up at night because they're having nightmares that somebody's killing them, or they're waking up because they had a nightmare they're going to kill somebody in that, I want to know what's affecting them in that room. Now, in the flip side is I'm asking my team to go in there, and thank God all my team is done having children, because we've been in some houses where I'm sure they could pay $5 and you could get instantly sterilized by being in that much electromagnet, current. I mean, really, it's unbelievable. We've walked into rooms, right, where the meters have just flatlined.
Oh, yeah.
No matter where you're at.
We've walked into places that there shouldn't be any electrical energy, and they pegged to the wall.
I'm having nightmares. Your headboard is right under the gang box where the electric is coming into the house. It's pouring in here. You're having nightmares. Move your bed away from them. You know what? We're not having nightmares anymore. The ghost must have moved out, or you moved your bed away from that. They're real investigations. But like I say, I'm bringing my team in there. So they're going through all this stuff. Do I think that that's causing diseases like I have? Because I'll use me for a perfect example. I've got everything wrong with me. But I don't believe that it was caused because of that investigating. I will say that, what's her name? Warren once said on TV, every case takes a little bit out of you. It does, in the sense that you're walking into families in trouble and there's that emotional thing going on. If you know what I mean, right?
Mm-hmm.
You've got that emotional thing going on. You're looking at people who are crying. We had the Aberdeen case where you're looking at a Medal of Honor winner who can't even stand up, and he's in tears and he's screaming, "Get it out of here!" You got a wife that's sitting in a chair. She can't even stand up. She's so scared, And you're walking it, so there's that drainage that way. No, we can't, because the mic is on my headphones. But there's that kind of emotional baggage that will assert itself on something like MS or asthma, or if you're prone to getting migraines, too much electromagnet being around it, you're going to these, and let's talk about these big prisons and these big hospitals that are abandoned, and now they're privately owned, and the people are just trying to pay the taxes on them until they can turn them into condominiums and whatever. So they're running all these ghost tours, okay? They've got wires all over the place because the insurance company is telling them you got to have lights, you got to have certain safety precautions for these buildings, and you've got teams walking through this, right? If you suffer from migraines, you're very likely to have a migraine because you're going through all this electromagnet. You also smell. Nothing will click and trigger a migraine like smell. I don't know. Do you know anybody who has migraines? Right?
A couple people, yeah.
With my daughter, a smell will trigger a migraine. It's that fast. Just some smell, and suddenly she's got a blinding headache, and she's got to lay down. She will puke the whole 9 yards. So when people, going into one of these buildings and doing these kind of cases might trigger something, but it's an underlying illness. I don't believe that it's making you ill, but it might trigger symptoms and kick it into a higher gear, the same way as now I can't eat peanut butter because I went into anaphylactic shock. So I've got to watch. DX Llama is saying, thank goodness my nose is always stuffed up. I don't have to worry about that. Well, like if I sit there and eat peanut butter and jelly now, I'll have an asthma attack. I got to watch it. I ended up in the hospital with anaphylactic shock. So, you've got to use your brains when you're doing this. And when you're bringing your team in, you've got to know your team. If you've got somebody on your team who gets migraines, you probably don't want them going into cases where there's a lot of electrical wire or there's a lot of, spillage from stuff. Now let's get to smoking. People smoke in houses. You've got people with asthma, you've got people get headaches, and they sit there and say, I don't know, but I was on this case and I had a terrible headache and I got all congested. Are they smokers in the house? Even if they're not smoking in the house, smoke lingers on your clothing. I can tell when people are smoking. It's all over their clothes. They don't smell it anymore, but I do, So you're exposing your teams to this. People have to really open their eyes when they're doing these cases. They have to do more than walk in and say, oh, we're here to find ghosts. They have to actually understand what they're walking into. Mold, dust. How many people get allergies triggered by dust in rugs, dust all over the place? And I don't care how clean a place is, with the exception of the house in Aberdeen. I think that's probably the cleanest house I ever was in my life.
Yeah, you could make microchips in that safe house.
Honest to God, that's how clean it was. And that's why we knew something else was going on. We knew it wasn't chemicals or electrical, because we went through the paces. We eliminated everything else, so then we knew it had to be something really going on in there. And then we focused on that. And that's what a real case is. It's not necessarily, and I hate the word, debunking, but you're eliminating all the variables and narrowing down what exactly is going on in the house. But in doing that, you're exposing your team to dangers. You're exposing it to people who can be unpredictable. Nothing can get uglier than a couple, and one gets into trouble, and then they, even though they're fighting, they gang up with each other against you, because no, he would never do that. We just had a case like that. We were told, no, my spouse would never, ever do that. And yet, that's exactly what was going on. The spouse was staging things to try to scare the other one. The ex-llama is saying smoke in her old apartment, and the cat had seizures and would puke a lot. See, all of this affects you, and you're bringing teams into this. And I don't know how much I don't want to be repetitive, but I want people to understand MRSA, strep. Okay, you're bringing a team in, somebody's got TB, somebody's got, hepatitis, somebody's got MRSA, they've got a sore, somebody's been, weaving dirty bandages around. We've walked into all of this stuff. I don't send a special group from Sci-Fi Channel to go in and look at these houses before I get in there, because these families...
And you can't insult the family by being shocked by this living conditions, but it's horrible sometimes. It
is. And thank you, Matt, for weighing in, because I feel like a broken record. But we've seen all of it. We've seen everything.
Horrible situation, horrible conditions.
Oh, yeah.
You gotta roll with it.
Like houses that should be condemned in most places.
I start seeing ghosts when I'm in there. My own ghost.
What is it Bob said that one time? He said to the ghost, he says, "Why the hell would you want to be in here?" And I almost choked to death. He was like, "Oh my God."
When you leave the haunting and you got a ghost in the car trying to get out, you know there's a problem.
Oh yeah, that's why we keep bringing them home. They're like, I've been waiting for a chance to get out of here. I'm going with you.
Yeah, see, BX Lama is a social worker, and she's been on some cases with us, and she says she's used to going into bad houses, but most investigative teams aren't. They put these blinders on and think, well, that has nothing to do with what's going on here. The fact that they're a bad housekeeper, or the house is dirty, or they're doing drugs or anything, that has nothing to do. It has everything to do with the case. It has everything to do with the case. What's going on in 99% of cases has nothing to do with a ghost. It's the people there. It's the situation there. It's whatever is going on in that situation that's causing the tensions, is causing the accelerated illnesses going on, and a demon must be making us sick. No, maybe try cleaning up some of the crap around here. Maybe that disgustingly filthy cat box that's got, sitting there and it looks like it hasn't been cleaned in 2 months. Maybe that has more to do with what's going on with this unexplained phenomena than some poor schmucky ghost that has to live there. I can't imagine what it's like for some of these spirits to live in some of these situations. But I have to say, even something simple like in very, very old houses, when people would build their own houses, of course, they would go for the cheapest things. Now we all know you use copper piping for water, you don't use, iron, but you'd be surprised how many houses we go into and they still have iron water pipes. And they got wires laying on those iron pipes too, which amazes me that nobody's been killed. Now you send one of your team down there and they're not being careful and they go and reach onto that hot iron pipe. And I don't mean hot from water. I'm talking about there's an electrical wire crossing over it and now it's got a charge going through it. You just electrocuted one of your own team. I mean, it's that simple. And unfortunately, I'm not seeing a lot of teams that are willing to wake up and say, oh, yeah, because they're all doing this other stuff. As far as, do I think that these cases are causing teams to be sick in a way like, well, you know, I'm an investigator and I have an autoimmune system. I think it's more hereditary, but definitely, especially with the teams I'm seeing where they're so success-driven. Okay, is that a nasty way of putting it? They're success-driven. They're pushing their teams. You know, we got to make more cases. We got to look good. We got to make it look like we know what we're doing, even though we're just walking around cemeteries going, are there any ghosts here? We're walking around the same buildings that a million other groups have walked through. Is there anybody there? You know, they want to look like they're really professional and everything, but I don't believe, I think what might attribute to them burning out faster is the fact that they're so driven that they are burning themselves out. They're exhausted from trying to make it, and that's why so many of them are breaking up too. I mean, there's a lot of them that, you know, they make it maybe a few months and then they're done. There's a big blow up and one will say, I didn't know, you know, they wanted to go this way, and oh, we found out that they're talking to some network and they're doing this and they're doing that. And all the time, the teams are just, they're wearing themselves down. They're taking chances they shouldn't be taking. Absolutely. They are taking chances going into cemeteries late at night and wandering around. You know, they're taking chances on going into buildings that are unsafe with bad floors, with already slip Smoochie. Oh, I'm watching the chat. These teams have got to start pacing themselves, and more isn't better in this situation. More is really not a good thing. Another thing is, you know, I get a lot of this. We send out a questionnaire, and Teddy and I learned years and years ago, try like 1980, people lie on questionnaires. Is anybody taking any drugs? No. Then you find out they're on blood thinners, you know, they're on this, somebody's on medicine for depression, and then they'll sit there and they'll counter you by saying, well, we thought you meant illegal drugs. No, I asked you, is anybody taking anything in the house? I mean, you know, when I send Scott out and he does his thing, and all my team are excellent at what they do. Brian is excellent with tech stuff. He's excellent with photographs. He's very discernible with people. He's very quiet, as I guess everybody can understand, because he very rarely says anything.
Yeah, but I listen well.
He listens. He's a good observer. My entire team is excellent at observing, and that's what makes everybody on my team so important. It isn't that we have 25 different cams going. We have enough to get the job done. We have enough to understand what's going on, and we have the ability to point the client in the right direction. But then again, we're not looking to get on TV. You know, we're doing it to help the client, because somebody's got to get in there and help. But like Matt said, we see terrible things, and I don't think a lot of teams are prepared for some of the things we've seen. And when you're going to drive your team so hard with all these cases and stop back in 2 weeks and we're going to have 5 more cases put on, that tells me your team is not your focal point. Your focal point is to make a name for yourself. And you're putting your team in jeopardy because you're going to drive them so hard, somebody's either going to get sick, burned out, or hurt. Any thoughts?
Well, no. You pretty much covered it.
I win.
You Bueller. Is anybody there?
Is anybody there, Bueller? We're going to go to the last break, and the last song is Gloria by The Doors. And this is GameCon Radio, and I'm trying to help young teams understand it's not a contest on racking up cases. Your team is your focal point, and you've got to protect your team, and you've got to keep them safe. And we'll be right back.
You are listening to GameCon Radio.
Your resident Beatles expert. I listen to GameCon Radio. Why? Because it's cool. I listen to it. You should too. That's GameCon Radio. I'll see you there.
Welcome back to Moebanshee's Lair, Visionary Talk Radio. And we're having a big discussion in the background here because the topic tonight is, are your investigations making your team sick? I think what might be destroying teams and making them sick is bad leadership, basically. Because I think there are a lot of people who just have no clue what they're walking into with groups. And then their groups become overwhelmed because a lot of these groups in this economy are thinking maybe they can, when TAPS gets thrown off the air, which isn't going to happen, they're going to be playing their reruns till my granddaughter is 90 years old. And so the chances of anybody else getting a big hit on TV are zilch. But a lot of these teams are going through marathon cases, and it doesn't matter if it's got a cemetery, if it's got a tombstone, if it's an empty house. They're taking chances with their teams. They're exposing their teams to things that are lethal or could hurt their health. Asbestos. How many times do you watch commercials? Be careful, old buildings and asbestos. And yet you watch teams and they're walking through these teams that are just, they got asbestos coming off the walls. They've got lead paint falling off the walls. I mean, they're kicking up dust on the floor that has lead paint, asbestos, has mold, has dust, has animal fecal matter, rats, squirrels running through them, and then they go home and they're sick and they go, oh, the ghost made me sick. No, your stupidity made you sick. Your stupidity. What the hell were you thinking taking your team in this place? You know? I mean, and so, I mean, I understand people like myself, we have underlying illnesses. So I have to be careful where I'm taking my team because I don't want to make myself sick on top of all this. We were talking too about faith and beliefs. When you're taking a case, you have, you know, a lot of people sit there and say, you know, well, you know, I don't believe in God and I don't believe in this and I don't believe in that. But you know what? Your client does. If your client has a faith or a religious belief, and my team has seen it, Brian's seen it, I've used that to help ground them. I don't care if they believe in a magic rabbit's foot. I will definitely use that to help them. If that will give them the strength to stand up on their own 2 feet, I will use it. And I ain't ashamed of it. My personal understanding of this and my personal experience after doing this for well over 30 years, that's all I'm copping to, people, is religion very rarely has anything to do with a haunting. It isn't about, you know, the people are bad and don't believe in God, and it isn't about the people were pretending they were Satan worshipers and all that. That might draw some negative spirit. But the bottom line, it's them. It's their behavior doing it. It's their, most people that get into that have issues. And I don't mean magazines, okay? So when you're taking a case, you have to respect and use whatever it is your client believes in. You use that to help them get the balls to stand up against whatever's going on. The other thing we were just talking about is nobody ever thinks about pesticides. People get their lawns sprayed once a month by Green Lawn or Chemicals Joe's or Lawns R Us. They're walking around in these chemicals. They're dragging them into their house. They're all over their carpets. They take off their shoes. Now they're walking in bare feet. They're walking all over these chemicals that are pesticides. The fighter, Cassius Clay, what's his name? Muhammad Ali.
Muhammad Ali.
Yeah. He blamed his Parkinson's on the fact that he lived in Cherry Hill and they kept bringing in exterminators and spraying inside the house. And he swore that that was one of the things that was making him sick and giving him the Parkinson's. You know, this chemical stuff, if it kills bugs, it'll kill you. Another thing is, while I'm thinking of it, very old houses. It used to be common practice to keep arsenic in your house for rats and that kind of thing. Grandpa's dead 20 years, but you didn't go down and clean out all the crap he left down there. There is very likely to be a bottle or a box with some kind of arsenic, some kind of rat killer, something down there, and now it's seeping out of the container and you're smelling it in, okay? Your team is going to walk into that, people. So my team, we do a quick walkthrough, we target what needs to be taken care of, and we make sure it's taken care of because I'm not putting my team in that kind of danger. I'm not going to have them sitting there smelling in rat crap or dog excrement or arsenic or any of that stuff. VX Llama says new rugs give off chemicals. The plastic small vinyl shades, the blinds, mini blinds, sun will hit that. My apartment faces the sun all afternoon. The sun will bake that, and you can walk in here and you can smell the chemical coming out of those blinds. And it will make everybody in the house sick. I have to open all the windows. If we're down the camper and my daughter comes in and puts the air conditioner on but doesn't open it up, you could smell the chemical being released from those mini blinds. Memory foam, anything like that. These things are lethal, and you've got to protect your teams from these. And yeah, they can trigger things that you'll look and say, we went on this case and my team got so sick, but you aren't recording that they had chemicals down in the basement. You're not reporting they got black mold in the house. You're not reporting that there's rat crap all over the basement. You're not recording anything. All you want to hear is, yeah, it's the ghost. The ghost made them sick. That was the best team. Half my team got sick. You're a jerk. You're a jerk if your team got sick. Matthew was just talking about when we go on cases, he says, not for anything, but you research, right? You want to talk about that?
I'm just saying that research is 9/10 of it. Before we go on a case, Mo goes and she researches the area, the history, every aspect of it before we walk in. This way nothing's assumed and we have a little more idea of what's going on.
Because homeowners will have what they believe is the truth or what they were told by the person selling, what do you call it, the agent, okay? So the agent says, oh, I think the house was built in the 20s, and they gave you this story because they want a commission for selling this house. That's what they want. So they're going to make it look as good as they can. So now, Scott, I have him go in, he does a deed search. And yeah, it costs money. Again, we're back to the money bit. Because you have to pay for this information. We're not taps. Nobody sits there and says, oh my God, the bald guy and his toady are here. Let's give them all this information for free. They're looking at me saying, Yeah, a copy of this is $15, and a copy of that is $15. And if you want to check and see who owned the property before that, that's another $10. And oh yeah, there's this, that, and the next thing. And this is all the people who collected mail at this apartment or this building or whatever else. That's another $25. This research costs money, and it's not free. And a lot of towns won't let you do it. You got to go backwards. You got to bend over backwards. Scott's amazing at digging up information. I dig up information. We get a lot of cases where people have completely wrong ideas about their houses, and that is what is affecting. Oh my God! I know it's this. I know it's a Revolutionary Soldier because somebody told me this, that, or the next thing, and then you find out the house isn't that old. Another real danger is when you tell the client everything they know about the house is wrong, and then they get pretty pissed off about it. I would have to say,
they don't want to hear something that they don't think is true already.
Yeah. Nobody wants to hear that somebody in their family is doing drugs. Nobody wants to hear that their well is contaminated. Nobody wants to hear they have carbon monoxide, or where's your ozone? Where's your things that you're supposed to have here?
And then they're trying to steer you to what they want the outcome to be, and then they shop around for other investigators till they get what they want to be the answer.
Yeah. So all of this plays on everything that's going on, and we're running out of time, but Matt was saying, if you want to know what it's like to go on a real case, go stare at a wall in a basement for something like 8 hours and just stare at a spot in the wall.
And a really bad smell for good measure.
Yeah.
And record it so you can watch it again when you get home.
Yeah, absolutely. Have cameras there and audio and everything else. And have some chemicals down there, and maybe a dirty cat box, and maybe
have somebody follow you around and stare over your shoulder the whole time, suggest things.
Yeah, and that kind of thing. That's what a real case is like. It's not like on TV. And so to get back to the original reason we wanted to do this show tonight, do I think that teams are getting ill because of the cases they're taking? It's not because of the spirits there. It's because they're taking cases, too many cases. They're taking their teams into places that are not healthy, that are dangerous, that are stressful, and they're trying to build up a lot of cases, and they shouldn't be. That's why my team, somebody said to me recently, you must be very, very, very busy. And I do get a lot of calls. I get a lot of calls from people, but I don't go running out the door and say, we got one, because I have a team to consider. There's money involved. My team's health is important. I'm not going to drag them out on a fool's errand just because I want to show on Facebook or on some site, or I want to go on the asylum and show them, look, I scored 20 cases this month. That's not why I'm doing this. I'm doing this to educate people. I'm doing this to help people. My team is in it for all the right reasons. And yeah, it's boring, and 99% of the time, it sucks. You walk away and say, well, that's a whole family that needs a whole lot of help, or that's a person who needs to go into drug counseling, or that's a house that needs to be completely torn down. But at the end of it, you go, but I don't think it's a ghost there. So I don't think a lot of the illnesses are being caused by the investigations. I think, if anything else, the illnesses are being aggravated by the stress and by teams trying too hard to be the next TAPS.
Yeah, and the environmental conditions of the places.
Yeah, you're dragging your teams into places that just are not healthy to begin with. So if somebody has an impaired immune system and doesn't know it, and then suddenly they start getting sick, and there is nothing more stressful than, I suppose, trying to get a team. I've never done it, but maybe, somebody trying to get a team together and talk to, places about getting TV shows or radio shows or whatever. And it's very dog-eat-dog right now. It's extremely dog-eat-dog. Everybody is, look at our evidence. Look at our evidence. I got my own evidence to look at. I don't want to look at your evidence. I could give a shit less about your evidence, really. I mean, what are you doing this for? Oh, we just want proof. No, that's not why you're doing it. You want a name for yourself. And at the cost of burning your team out and putting your team in danger, both environmental, physically, emotionally, your team's welfare is your priority, people. I hope this helps people out. I do think that there are some people who are sensitive and they will get sick on cases. I don't think it's necessarily ghosts doing it, although I have been affected by something that's happened at a location, but it just, as I said, it impacted something else that was wrong with me. I put myself in a position where something impacted something I already had wrong with me. But that's what I feel about it. So no, I don't think investigations are making people sick. I think inappropriate and not thought out, and people trying to force teams into being stars, maybe. I don't know, but maybe that's what's going on.
Yeah, basically poor judgment's causing the sickness.
Yeah,
in a lot of cases.
I mean, as far as like lupus, these are diseases, these are genetic. And
these aren't things you get from a ghost.
Nobody knows they have it until they've got it. That's the bottom line. And we do hope Dan Mahoney gets well. He's fighting a hell of a battle. He's been a couple of years now just being treated, and it's really rough. On my podcast, the Podomatic, Moebanshee, I put up the show that Mark Reno did with us with Joe Moebanshee. Joe was the backup singer for Elvis with the Imperials when Elvis was doing Las Vegas. And that was like an incredible show. And since I think like August is birthday time for Elvis or something, or he died in the summertime, whatever it is, I thought I would put that show up because I met up with Mark this weekend, and Mark does a great show for Elvis, and it's just awesome. And I have him singing a song on the show. I think if you like Elvis, it's about the gospel side of Elvis. Joe wrote a book called The Gospel Side of Elvis. It was one of our great shows. It really was. And Mark even said it. He thought it was one of the best interviews we ever did. And I think Joe really liked it. And I'm trying to put up some shows so people can hear old shows we've done that really were outstanding. And that was one of the good shows. That's on Podomatic. You can always find me at asylumskate.com or on Facebook, Moebanshee Asylum. Anybody needs help, I'm approachable. Brian is approachable. I've been doing this a long time. And my health sucks, but I don't think Casper the Ghost did it. I think bad genetics did it. And that's pretty much how I see it. So, but I do know that there's a lot of teams that are struggling, and I think they need to take a step back, take a deep breath, and try to refocus on why they're doing this all. Any other thoughts in closing?
Just safe and try to keep it real,
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Brian?
Use your brain.
Yeah, use your brain.
Your best tool's what God gave you.
Yep. You can have all the equipment in the world, but if you're a moron, you're not going to do your client any good, and you're going to put your team in danger. And that's the one thing I have no forgiveness for. If you're putting your team in danger, then you don't deserve to have a team. And that's the bottom line with this. As far as teams getting sick, I understand that a lot of cases can drain you. But then it's up to the person to learn to pace themselves and not drive the team so much for the brass ring, you know? Do it for the right reasons. You won't have these problems, you know? And with that, I'm going to say good night. I have no idea what next week's show is going to be about, but we will be featuring music from Finland because there's some holiday in Finland that coming up this coming weekend. So we're going to be focusing on Finland's music. So, and we've got some good shows. Tom and Matthew Reed are coming back. And we've got some other really cool shows coming up. And this is GameCon Radio. God bless you all. Thank you all for listening in, and good night.
Night.
Somewhere over the rainbow, birds fly. Birds fly over the rainbow. Why, oh, can't
Thank you for visiting me at my lair. Moebanshee's Lair is broadcast live on Tuesday evenings at 10 p.m. Eastern, 9 p.m. Central, 8 p.m. Mountain, 7 p.m. Pacific, and in the UK, 3 a.m. Wednesday mornings on www.gameconradio.com. You can listen to our recent recordings on Podomatic/Moebanshee. You can contact me at www.asylumsgate.com. Again, thank you for listening. God bless you and yours, and have a very cool day.
Ha 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 ha.